بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأزكى التسليم على مبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to the Fiqh class. Today inshallah we're going to discuss the book of vows. The book of vows, in Arabic, vow is nadhr. And the discussion in this book will consist of three main topics. First, types of vows. Second, the nature, what counts as a vow and what does not. And third, when the vow is binding. If we say this is yes, this is a vow, is it binding? And if it is binding, then what is sufficient to be done? These are the three main topics that we will discuss inshallah in this book. First, types of vows. We have two types. Types of vows are two. One type is about the expression, from the aspect of expression. How do you express the vow? And then the second type, things or objects. Is this vow about doing something that is recommended, or it is about something that is prohibited, or it is about something that is disliked or permissible? That's what we mean by objects or things. Now, from the aspect of expression, we have two types: absolute, nadhrun mutlaq, and we have qualified. Specific nadhr. From the aspect of things, as I said, we have four types. To vow to do something which is ibadah. Like what? I vow to pray 2 rak'ah today. This is a vow. And this vow pertains to ibadah, which is prayer, praying 2 rak'ah. A vow for things that are disobedience. I vow to kill this woman, to kill this man. I vow to do this, to do that. A vow for things that are disliked. It's not prohibited, but it is disliked in Sharia, yet you vow to do that thing. Or a vow for things that are permissible. Now, all those four, they are also divided to two types. All four. So, in total we have 8 divisions. Because a vow, just like the oath, whether to do or to avoid. So, either you vow to do something which is prohibited, or you vow to avoid something which avoiding it is prohibited. Like, I vow not to pray dhuhr today. Is this clear? These are the types of vows. So, what is binding in these vows? And what is not binding? Okay. That is binding. How it becomes binding?
Because you
Give me an example of a vow that becomes binding. Is it one form?
Say you vow to pray Dhuhr first, and shall you should fulfill that vow.
Say it.
Right now, like I vow to pray Dhuhr.
I vow to pray Dhuhr. Is this a vow? It is a vow. Why? Does Dhuhr prayer need your vow? No. So does this vow count? See? That is not... You need, again, when I ask about an example, it has to be clear. This is a vow, but it's not agreed upon. They agreed that the absolute vow for worship is binding. Like what? Absolute vow. What do you mean by absolute vow? I vow. But what's the fulfillment of that vow? That's what we mean by absolute vow. They also agreed when a vow is made willingly and the word nadr is used, then it is also binding. Because vow in Arabic means nadr. They also they agreed on a vow where the condition is made. That also is binding. If it rains today, I vow to sacrifice a camel. It rained today. That vow is binding. Why? Because it was made upon a condition. Once that condition is there, the vow has to be fulfilled. Next issue. The vow, when it becomes binding, it becomes binding by the word or by the intention.
By the word.
What do you mean by that? We don't mean that within yourself you say, I promise to do this, but you did not announce it. We mean by this, when you say a word, but it is not the explicit word of vow itself, yet you intended it, would that be binding or no? That's what we mean by this issue. An example for this, if you say, Insha'Allah, today it will rain. Oh, I wish it will rain. If it rained, then I am going to do this. That's all what you said. I am going to do this. But with your intention, that was a vow. Although you did not utter the word nadr or vow. Would that count as a vow or no? Or on the other side, if you say, I vow to do this, if this happened, and this did happen, but you did not fulfill, and you said, I did not mean a vow, I just meant, and that was your intention also, but you pronounced the word vow. So what counts as a vow? يرحمكم الله. What counts as a vow?
Just like in marriage, there are specific words to make divorce, to make divorce. I think it would be the same, and that word has to be pronounced.
Is the vow like divorce?
Your pronouncing of that word,
Yeah.
like talaq.
If you purchased lottery ticket and you said, if I got the grand prize, I promise to give you 10% of it. And the grand prize was $30 million. Okay? And I come and I ask for my 10%. And I say, you promised me. You said, I will not give it to you. If I went to the court, would they say, you have to give it to him, you promised him? He promised.
Unless there's some proof, you can't really prove it.
Promise and nothing is different.
Different. Promise and nether are different, yet promise, talaq and nether are the same.
In specifying those words to initiate an act.
So, what counts?
Your intention.
Your intention. Without the word vow?
I think the word.
The word has to be mentioned. That's the opinion of the majority. According to Imam Malik rahimahullah, there is no need to stipulate the word. As long as your intention is a vow, then it becomes a vow. That's the opinion of Imam Malik rahimahullah. Okay? Now, the vow of disobedience. Someone woke up in the morning and he said, I vow to drink tonight. And he came to you and he said, I am very righteous. I gave my word. I cannot break my word. I have to drink. What should I do?
Break your vow.
Break the vow.
Heavy. Not sure if it says oath or vow, but there's no oath or vow in disobedience to Allah. There's no oath or vow in disobedience.
What does it mean if you say there is no oath or vow?
That it's not binding.
It is not binding.
You can't fulfill that disobedience.
Okay. Someone wakes up in the morning and he says, today I vow to drink alcohol. Then he says, I vow to gamble, to play poker. Then he says, I vow to take drugs. Then he says, I vow at the end of the night to go to that bar and sit there. And he came to you and he said, look, I am in trouble. I made 5, 6 vows. I may not be able to do all of them together. What should I do? What do you tell him?
He doesn't fulfill any of them.
He doesn't fulfill any of them. That's it. Okay. He came to you and you told him, don't do any of them. And he went home. Next day he made the same vow. And he came to you.
Tell him he shouldn't make vows of disobedience to begin with.
He shouldn't vow, but there are no consequences for this vow. It is just a null speech.
I don't know if there's kifara for a vow. That's for appropriate.
You don't know. Does he have to do anything? Or that's it, you tell him go home, behave.
No, he doesn't do any of the disobedience.
He doesn't do any of the disobedience. Okay?
I think you should take kifara.
Why? Why he should pay kafara?
Because he, well, no, it's not for disobedience.
Again, we need evidences.
Hey, yesterday we took break your oath and do what's better.
Okay? That is oath. And then, if you broke your oath and did what is better, that's sufficient?
No, you have to take the kafara.
There has to be kafara. What about the nether? Some scholars, including Malik and Ash-Shafi'i, they said there is nothing. You just don't fulfill the vow. Why? Because of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, whoever vowed to obey Allah, then he should obey Allah. And whoever vowed to disobey Allah, let him not disobey Allah. This hadith tells us that if you vow to obey Allah, you obey Him. If you vow to disobey Him, you just don't disobey Him. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and others said, no, there is kafara. The Prophet ﷺ said, there is no vow in disobeying Allah. And its expiation is the expiation of an oath. So this hadith contradicts the first one. And that's why scholars differed. Which one to take?
Wouldn't the second one be an addition?
Hmm?
All it says is that there's no disobedience, you don't fulfill it. The second one seems as supplementary as an addition.
Well, that's when we have the two ahadith on the same level. But if one of them is authentic and the other one is weak, we don't take the weak one. But actually in this case, both of them are authentic. So there is a problem. So how we reconcile?
Take the one that has more detail.
Which one has more detail?
The second one, it specifies that both of the other has kifara.
Hmm?
The second one,
Second one has more details? The second one is more specific. Okay. Next issue. Now, you don't vow to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you merely vow to prohibit something which is permissible. What do you do?
It's incorrect. Well, the Prophet
The Prophet ﷺ was?
Or not warned, but told in the honey, he forbid honey. So
Yeah.
why that you shouldn't make impermissible what?
Okay. Someone vegetarian does not want to eat meat, and he said, I vow not to eat meat. Is that not good? Eating meat, is it must or permissible? Permissible, but he did not want it anymore.
You shouldn't vow though. He just says that I don't.
I mean, if you have a preference not to do something, don't do it, but don't go out and make it haram for yourself. Or not haram, but to forbid it.
I did not make it haram, but me, myself, I pledged not to do it.
Yeah, you can't make something permissible forbidden for yourself.
I can't. I cannot prohibit anything. I don't have the right of legislation. But for myself.
That's what I'm saying. You can't forbid it for yourself.
Okay, that's what I said. I already said. I vowed. What should I do?
It's not binding.
It is not binding. You just go and eat.
Yeah, you're putting yourself in hardship. What if you have nothing else but that?
I have something else, but I said, you know what? It has been now 2 months. I like to eat meat. And I ate meat.
According to Abu Hanifa, he breaks that vow.
Yes, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, there is kafara. Why? If you go back to the ayah, ayat al-Tahrim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ فَرَضَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ تَحِلَّةَ أَيْمَانِكُمْ. Allah ordained the atonement for your oaths. So it is just like an oath, the expiation for the nether. Imam Malik rahimahullah, he said that vow is not binding. Except in one case. The case of the husband who vows not to approach his wife. In this case, it becomes dhihar. And it has different rulings. The Zahirites, they said, there is nothing.
See that because the ayah doesn't say nothing.
What ayah? Yeah.
Is that why they say there's nothing?
Ayat al-Tahrim,
You said it says oaths.
yeah.
So they're saying
No mentioning for nether.
right, so that's why they say.
Okay. Next issue. The unqualified vows. What do we mean by unqualified vows? You don't specify what to do. You say, I owe Allah a vow. That's all what he said.
So it could be anything.
He did not specify. That's what he said. What should he do?
Fulfill something.
What is that thing?
Something
Give $1 in charity? Is that a vow? Giving $1 in charity?
If he was to say, if he was to pronounce that, then he would have to fulfill it.
I owe Allah a vow. That's all what he said. I vow to Allah. To do what? He did not mention. But he said a vow. And he said that he owes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a vow. Now, from the ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَوْفُوا بِالْعُقُودِ Fulfill your commitments. And one of the qualities of the believers, يُفُونَ بِالنَّذْرِ They fulfill their vows. So he came and said, I want to fulfill my vow. What should I do? And you tell him, what did you say? He says, I just said, I owe Allah a vow. Some scholars said, if he did not specify, he has to expiate the kafara of the yameen. Others said, anything is sufficient. He owes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a vow. A vow could be as little as giving $1 in charity, right? Can you make a vow to give $1 in charity? Yes. Can you make a vow to fast one day? Yes. Can you make a vow to pray 2 rak'ah? Yes. So they said anything of that is sufficient. Okay. Now, we come to an interesting issue. Someone vowed to walk to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that obedience or disobedience? Obedience. Is it binding or not binding?
In worship.
It is a vow. It is a vow in worship. So it should be what? Binding. And that's what all scholars agreed. Right? Yes or no? Okay. That is not the question. The question is if he could not go walking. Pay the kafara? Why? Someone vowed to walk to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Turkey. According to all scholars, his vow is what? Binding. He walked 1,000 miles and that's it. He could not walk anymore. So what should he do?
Is it different if he tried, or is it different just not going at all?
That's what happened. He tried and he walked 1,000 miles. There are still 2 more thousands to go. There are 3 opinions. First opinion, that he has to retry again. Second opinion, he rides and sacrifices. Third opinion, he just sacrifices. He doesn't need to do anything. Okay? What if someone vowed to give up all his wealth to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Someone vowed to sacrifice his son. Is that a valid vow? Disobedience? Why? He wanted to follow the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam was commanded to sacrifice his son. So he said, I will sacrifice my son in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
He was told that. You weren't told. You got wahi.
Yeah, I want to get the wahi also. Okay. What should he do? What? What's the kafara? When Ibrahim a.s. was commanded to sacrifice his son, Allah gave him a ram. So that's what you should sacrifice. Other scholars said, no, you sacrifice camel. Other scholars said, to begin with, this is not a valid vow. So whoever said this is not a valid vow, depending on what they say about the not valid vow, whether you pay the kafara or you don't, you just don't fulfill it. But of course, all scholars agreed that you don't sacrifice your son. But now the issue is, if you sacrifice to give up all your wealth for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not binding? Why? Isn't that ibadah? Give up all your money in the cause of Allah. What is better than doing this?
He should leave some for his family.
He should. That's when you are on the deathbed, not when you're alive. He did not tell Abu Bakr, no, go back and... He vowed. He said, he has to give it. So he got a new job and he was so excited and he said, if I got the job, I will give up everything I have for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The car, the money, the property and everything. What do you tell him? What if it were you?
It's binding, but he can break. He can do what's better. Break it.
What is better?
To have sustenance.
First of all, you need to remember that the Prophet ﷺ said, nadr does not bring up good thing. That was not decreed. So don't think that by your vow you will get something. لا يأتي النذر بخير. It only extracts, it only takes from the stingy. Because if you are able to do this, you should have done it without waiting for something to happen. People say, if I became cured, that's what I will do. I promise, I vow to do this. Or if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me a son, I vow to do this. From the beginning, if you're able to do it, do it. But again, someone, he said, I vow to give up all my money in charity. Some scholars said he has to do it. This is ibadah. It is something good, so he has to do it. There is no expiation for it. There is no alternative. You have to give it. Others said, he pays kafarat al-yameen and he does not fulfill this vow. Next issue we have, now this is the last case in the book of vows. There are many other cases, but these are the most famous ones in regards to the vows. Next comes the book of sacrifice. And we will discuss in this book 4 topics. But inshallah, this will be left for next discussion. هذا وصلى الله وسلم على محمد وعلى صحبه أجمعين.